Did you know that Africa is home to the most genetically diverse people on the planet? But what does that really mean? And why is African DNA so unique compared to the rest of the world? Think about this. Every single person on Earth can trace their ancestral roots back to Africa. That's right, whether you're living in Asia, Europe, the Americas, or Australia, the genetic blueprint of humanity began on the African continent. But how does that impact the way we view genetics, evolution, and even the future of medicine? Today, we're diving deep into the science, history, and cultural importance of African DNA. We'll explore its incredible diversity, what makes it different, and why it holds the key to unlocking some of the biggest mysteries about human health and evolution. So, stick around. This is a story you don't want to miss. Let's start at the beginning. Why this question matters. Genetics is something we've all become familiar with, thanks to the growing popularity of DNA ancestry kits and breakthroughs in medical research. People are fascinated by the idea of uncovering where they come from, finding long-lost relatives, and even discovering how their DNA might influence their health. But here's a question. Why does so much of this research keep pointing back to Africa? It's not just a coincidence. Africa isn't just a piece of the genetic puzzle. It's the very foundation of it. Scientists call Africa the cradle of humanity, the place where modern humans, or Homo sapiens, first evolved. What's even more incredible is that African DNA contains more genetic variation than the DNA of all other continents combined. Let's break this down. Imagine a library with millions of books. Each book represents a unique genetic trait. Now, picture this. Africa's library has almost all the books, while the libraries on other continents only have a few shelves worth. That's essentially what genetic diversity looks like when comparing Africa to the rest of the world. So why is this important? Because genetic diversity isn't just a fun fact. It's a critical factor in understanding human evolution, adaptability, and even modern medicine. The unique variations found in African DNA have shaped how humans survived, thrived, and adapted over hundreds of thousands of years. But here's the thing. African DNA doesn't just tell us where we came from. It's also helping scientists figure out where we're headed. From studying diseases to developing new medical treatments, the genetic information locked within Africa's populations has the potential to change the future of health for everyone. So why does African DNA matter? Because it's not just about Africa, it's about all of us. And to truly understand its significance, we need to go back in time to where it all began. To truly understand why African DNA is so unique, we need to take a journey back in time, roughly 200,000 years ago, to the dawn of modern humans. Scientists believe that Homo sapiens, the species we all belong to, first emerged on the African continent. Fossil evidence from places like Ethiopia, South Africa, and Morocco shows that our ancestors lived, hunted, and thrived there long before humans migrated to other parts of the world. This is why Africa is often referred to as the cradle of humanity. But why does this matter for our DNA? Let's break it down. Around 70,000 years ago, a small group of humans began to leave Africa in what's known as the Out of Africa migration. This group represented only a tiny portion of the total population in Africa at the time. As they traveled to Europe, Asia, and beyond, their genetic pool became much smaller. This phenomenon is called a genetic bottleneck, and it essentially reduced the genetic diversity of non-African populations. Think of it like this. Imagine a jar filled with colorful marbles. If you pour out just a handful of those marbles, you'll have far fewer colors to work with. That's what happened to the genetic diversity of humans who left Africa. In contrast, the populations that remained in Africa continued to carry the full jar of genetic diversity. What's fascinating is that over 99% of all human genetic diversity can be found within Africa. That means that if you compared the DNA of two people from different parts of Africa, they're likely to be more genetically different from each other than either of them would be compared to someone from outside Africa. This incredible diversity is why African DNA is considered the richest and most complex genetic pool on the planet. But there's more. Some African populations, like the San people of southern Africa, carry genetic markers that are among the oldest in the world. These markers provide a direct link to our earliest ancestors and give scientists a clearer picture of how humans evolved over time. This depth of genetic information is invaluable. It not only helps us understand our shared history, but also provides clues about how humans adapted to different environments and survived for thousands of years. Africa's genetic diversity isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living testament to the resilience and adaptability of humanity. And as we'll see next, it has shaped not just our evolution but also our biology in ways that continue to impact us today. So, what exactly sets African DNA apart? Why is it so unique compared to the rest of the world? To answer that, we need to look at three key factors: genetic diversity, rare traits, and ancestral lineages. African populations have the highest genetic diversity on Earth. But what does that mean? Essentially, DNA is made up of variations called genetic markers. These markers determine everything from your eye color to your susceptibility to certain diseases. In Africa, there's a far greater variety of these genetic markers than anywhere else. This diversity exists because humans have lived and evolved in Africa for far longer than on any other continent. While populations outside Africa are descended from a smaller group of early humans, African populations continue to evolve with a much broader genetic pool. African DNA is also unique because of the way it has adapted to environmental challenges. For example, sickle cell trait. This genetic adaptation arose as a defense mechanism against malaria. While it can lead to sickle cell anemia in some cases, it also provides resistance to the disease, which is widespread in many parts of Africa. Lactose tolerance. Unlike many populations around the world, certain African groups evolved the ability to digest lactose as adults. This trait developed in communities that relied on cattle herding and milk as a key food source. High-altitude adaptation. Some groups, like the Ethiopian Highlanders, have unique genetic traits that allow them to thrive in low-oxygen environments, such as mountain regions. These adaptations aren't just fascinating, they highlight how closely human evolution is tied to environmental pressures. Some of the oldest and most distinct genetic lineages in the world are found in Africa. For example, the San people of southern Africa have genetic markers that date back tens of thousands of years. These markers provide scientists with a direct link to our earliest ancestors and help reconstruct the story of human evolution. But it's not just about ancient DNA. Even today, African populations continue to hold genetic variations that are rare or entirely absent in other parts of the world. This makes African DNA a goldmine for researchers studying genetics, evolution, and even modern medicine. This incredible diversity and uniqueness mean that African DNA isn't just about understanding the past. It's crucial for the future. It provides insights into how humans can adapt to diseases, environmental changes, and other challenges. For example, by studying the genetic traits of African populations, scientists have made breakthroughs in understanding diseases like malaria, HIV, and even cancer. In the next section, we'll explore why this diversity is so important, not just for Africa, but for humanity as a whole. Genetic diversity isn't just a scientific curiosity. It's a critical factor in understanding the survival and adaptability of our species. But why does this matter so much? And how does African DNA play a central role in this story? Genetic diversity is the foundation of adaptability. It's what allows species to survive and thrive in different environments. The broader the genetic pool, the more tools a population has to overcome challenges like diseases, climate changes, and environmental pressures. African DNA, with its unmatched diversity, carries a wealth of genetic variations that have helped humans adapt for thousands of years. For example, certain African populations have genetic traits that provide resistance to diseases like malaria or tuberculosis. Other genetic markers influence physical traits, like skin tone and body structure, which evolved in response to Africa's varying climates and UV exposure levels. This adaptability isn't just historical. It continues to shape how African populations respond to modern health challenges today. One of the most important reasons African DNA matters is its role in advancing medical research. Let's look at some key examples. HIV resistance. Some African individuals carry a genetic variation that offers natural resistance to HIV infection. By studying these individuals, researchers are developing new treatments and strategies for fighting the virus. Sickle cell research. The genetic mutation responsible for the sickle cell trait has provided critical insights into blood disorders and malaria. This research has led to advancements in managing and treating these conditions globally. Cancer and rare diseases. African genomes have helped scientists identify new genetic markers linked to cancers and rare diseases, paving the way for more targeted therapies. What's remarkable is that African DNA doesn't just benefit African populations. It's helping researchers make discoveries that benefit the entire world. The field of personalized medicine is revolutionizing healthcare by tailoring treatments to an individual's genetic makeup. But here's the catch. Most of the genetic data used in this research comes from non-African populations, particularly those of European descent. This lack of representation creates a major gap in our understanding of diseases and treatments for African populations and people of African descent worldwide. By studying African DNA more closely, scientists can develop treatments that are effective for a wider range of genetic profiles, improve health outcomes for people in Africa and the global African diaspora, uncover genetic clues that may lead to breakthroughs in treating diseases affecting all of humanity. African DNA isn't just about understanding the past. It's a key to shaping the future of health and science. The diversity within African genomes holds answers to questions we haven't even thought to ask yet. As we move forward, it's clear that African DNA will continue to play a central role in genetics, medicine, and our understanding of what it means to be human. Next, we'll address some of the common myths and misconceptions about African DNA and the importance of approaching this science with respect and responsibility. Despite the incredible significance of African DNA, there are many myths and misconceptions surrounding it. These misunderstandings have not only skewed public perception but have also led to the misuse of genetic science in harmful ways. Let's break down some of these myths and set the record straight. One common misconception is that African DNA's unique traits make people of African descent biologically superior or inferior to other populations. This couldn't be further from the truth. Genetic diversity isn't about better or worse. It's about adaptability to specific environments. For example, the sickle cell trait evolved to protect against malaria in regions where the disease is prevalent. Similarly, lactose tolerance evolved in populations that relied on dairy farming. These traits don't imply superiority. They're simply examples of how humans have adapted to their surroundings over thousands of years. Historically, genetics has been misused to justify racist ideologies and pseudoscience. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, scientists attempted to use genetics to rank races in a hierarchy, a completely false and unscientific notion. Modern genetic research has thoroughly debunked these ideas, showing that race is a social construct, not a biological one. While certain genetic traits may be more common in specific populations, all humans share more than 99.9% of their DNA. The differences that do exist are adaptations to local environments, not indicators of worth or ability. Another myth is that African DNA is uniform across the continent. In reality, Africa has the most genetically diverse populations in the world. People from different regions of Africa, north, west, east, central, and southern, can have vastly different genetic markers. For example, the San people of southern Africa have some of the most ancient genetic lineages, dating back tens of thousands of years. West African populations have genetic markers that reflect adaptations to humid, tropical environments. East African highlanders, such as Ethiopians, have genetic traits that allow them to thrive in low-oxygen, high-altitude environments. Grouping all African populations together ignores this incredible diversity and oversimplifies the science. As scientists study African DNA, it's critical to approach this work with respect and responsibility. Unfortunately, history has seen cases where genetic research has exploited African populations, such as using DNA without proper consent or failing to share the benefits of discoveries with local communities. Ethical research ensures that African nations and populations benefit from genetic advancements. This includes proper consent, collaboration with local scientists, and reinvestment in African health and education systems. Understanding and debunking these myths isn't just about correcting the record. It's about ensuring that the science of African DNA is used to unite us, not divide us. By embracing the truth, we can appreciate the richness of African DNA and the invaluable contributions it makes to our understanding of humanity. Next, we'll explore how African DNA intersects with cultural and historical narratives, adding another layer to its significance. When we talk about DNA, it's easy to get caught up in the science. But genetics isn't just about biology. It's deeply intertwined with history, culture, and human identity. African DNA tells a story that goes beyond science, weaving together the experiences of ancient civilizations, migrations, and even tragedies. For centuries, African communities have passed down their histories through oral traditions. Stories of migration, survival, and adaptation are told from one generation to the next. What's fascinating is how these cultural narratives often align with genetic findings. For example, oral histories among the Maasai in East Africa recount their migration patterns over hundreds of years. Genetic studies have confirmed these movements, showing shared markers between groups that are geographically distant today. This overlap between cultural storytelling and genetic science helps paint a more complete picture of human history. One of the darkest chapters in African history is the transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly displaced millions of Africans to the Americas and beyond. This tragic event not only fragmented families and communities but also disrupted genetic lineages. Today, many people of African descent in the Americas use genetic testing to reconnect with their ancestral roots. DNA technology has helped African diaspora communities trace their lineage back to specific regions and even ethnic groups within Africa. This isn't just a scientific process. It's an emotional journey to reclaim identities lost through centuries of displacement. The African continent has also been a melting pot of migrations and interactions throughout history. From the ancient trade routes of the Sahara to the seafaring cultures of East Africa, genetic evidence shows how African populations influenced and were influenced by other regions. North African DNA reveals connections to the Middle East and Mediterranean through trade and conquests. The Swahili coast reflects a blend of African, Arab, and even Asian genetic influences due to centuries of maritime trade. These interactions highlight Africa's central role in the broader story of human history, showing how deeply interconnected we all are. Understanding African DNA isn't just about studying genes. It's about recognizing the stories and struggles that shaped them. From the resilience of populations who adapted to their environments to the determination of diaspora communities reclaiming their heritage, African DNA reflects a shared history of humanity's triumphs and trials. As we look to the future, these cultural and historical perspectives remind us that genetics isn't just about data. It's about people, their stories, and their legacy. Next, we'll explore how African DNA is shaping the future of science and medicine, proving that its significance extends far beyond the past. African DNA doesn't just hold the key to understanding our past. It's also shaping the future of science, medicine, and global health. Its unparalleled diversity offers insights that could revolutionize how we approach genetics and solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity today. One of the most exciting implications of studying African DNA is its potential to advance medicine. Because African populations have such a rich and varied genetic makeup, they provide unique opportunities for breakthroughs in understanding diseases and developing treatments. For example, developing vaccines. Studying the genetic responses of African populations to diseases like malaria and HIV is helping scientists design more effective vaccines that can work globally. Rare genetic markers. African DNA has already led to the discovery of genetic markers linked to diseases like sickle cell anemia and certain cancers. Understanding these markers can help researchers develop targeted treatments. Longevity and disease resistance. Some African populations carry genetic variations that contribute to longer lifespans or resistance to specific illnesses. These discoveries could unlock new strategies for combating diseases worldwide. Personalized medicine is the future of healthcare. It's about tailoring treatments to an individual's genetic profile. However, the current genetic data used for research and development overwhelmingly comes from European populations, leaving a massive gap in understanding for other groups. By including more African genomes in genetic research, scientists can design treatments that are effective for a wider range of people. improve health outcomes for African populations and the global African diaspora, discover new pathways for treating diseases that affect all of humanity. A growing movement is shifting the focus of genomic research to include African scientists and institutions. Initiatives like the African Genome Project are ensuring that African nations play a leading role in studying and benefiting from their own genetic heritage. These projects foster collaboration between African researchers and international teams. They ensure that African communities have access to the medical advancements and economic benefits resulting from genetic research. African DNA also reminds us of the importance of preserving genetic diversity. In a rapidly changing world, this diversity is a key to humanity's resilience against challenges like pandemics and environmental shifts. By protecting African genetic heritage, we're safeguarding the adaptability of our entire species. Finally, the study of African DNA underscores our interconnectedness as a species. The insights gained from African genomes don't just benefit Africa, they benefit everyone. They remind us that no matter where we come from, we all share a common origin and a shared destiny. As we move into the future, embracing the potential of African DNA means embracing the incredible diversity and ingenuity of humanity itself. Next, we'll bring it all together in a powerful conclusion that highlights the shared legacy of African DNA and its significance for us all. What makes African DNA so unique? It's not just the unparalleled diversity, ancient roots, or remarkable adaptability. It's the way African DNA connects all of humanity. It tells the story of where we came from, how we survived, and how we adapted to thrive in an ever-changing world. Africa is the genetic birthplace of humanity, the cradle from which we all emerged. The genetic variations found in African populations have shaped not only their survival but the survival of our entire species. Today, this rich genetic legacy is driving groundbreaking discoveries in medicine, evolution, and disease prevention, discoveries that are changing lives globally. But African DNA is more than just science. It's a profound reminder of our shared history and interconnectedness. No matter where we live or who we are, the story of African DNA is a part of our story. It highlights that we're all connected, bound by the same thread of human resilience, ingenuity, and adaptation. As we look to the future, studying African DNA isn't just about understanding our past. It's about building a better future for everyone. It's about using science to celebrate diversity, solve shared challenges, and bring us closer together as one global family. So, as we end this journey into the uniqueness of African DNA, let's remember that this isn't just a scientific discovery. It's a celebration of humanity itself. If the story inspired you, share it with someone else. And don't forget to reflect on this. The diversity in African DNA is not just the key to understanding the past, but also to securing a stronger, healthier future for us all.